Well, good morning, folks. I hope everybody's doing well. I'm getting some work done for our Christmas season. We always have a very busy Christmas season with Vagabond Productions and our holiday subsidiary company, the Santa Company. So Halloween's over and people are gearing up and they're booking their Santa Claus appearances. We have, I have about, I think I'm going to use about nine different guys to impersonate Santa this year. Hey, Joyce, that's either Alice or Donna Ray on there. Don't know which one. But anyway, I'm getting up for that. And last week I posted, I found a picture of me and Barbara Mandrell from when I worked at Medieval Times in Kissimmee. And one of my friends, Sherry Butler, said she wanted to hear the story about me meeting Barbara Mandrell and asked me if I would tag her. So I have done that. And so here's what happened. First of all, I was a big Barbara Mandrell fan. I mean, before I got into radio, I was listening to her on the radio, and then when I got into radio, of course, I played her songs because she was in that what they called country crossover. So her music was being played on the country music radio stations, and it was being played on the adult contemporary and top 40 radio stations as well. She was in there with Kenny Rogers, Dolly Parton, Ronnie Millsap. The Oak Ridge Boys came in a couple of years later. Anyway, I had been a huge Barbara Mandrell fan for years and always watched Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell sisters when they had their variety show on TV with her sisters Earlene and Louise. Now, Louise had somewhat of a career in country music. She had some singles. Earlene is still out there performing at fairs and festivals with Earlene Mandrell, Friends and Family. I ran into her a couple of years ago, second time. Anyway, here's what happened. So I was working at Medieval Times in Kissimmee as the Master of Ceremonies, the Lord Chancellor. And I was getting ready to call people into the show when one of the marketing directors popped behind the curtain down in the main hall and said, Barbara Mandrell is here. And I was like, what? And she and her family, her husband and her son, Nathan, who was like 5 at the time, came walking through, and they went on back and they were the first ones seated. And I was like, oh my God, Barbara Mandrell is here watching the show. I get to perform in front of Barbara Mandrell tonight. So of course they put them right on the front row. They had a good time. At the end of the show, the winning knight goes out into the audience and picks someone from the audience to be our Queen of Love and Beauty. And it's usually a little girl, but he went over and selected Barbara Mandrell, which I was like, don't select Barbara Mandrell. She gets enough attention as it is. She probably just wants to enjoy herself. But anyway, she was fine. She came up and we gave her a crown and the sash. And I said, my lords and ladies, Lady Barbara, our Queen of Love and Beauty. So she waved. And I was like, oh my God, Barbara Mandrell is sitting 8 feet from me. And I hear, psst, psst. And I look over and she's like waving at me like this. And I said, yes. And she goes, you're really good. And I said, thank you. I was like, oh my God, Barbara Mandrell talked to me. So anyway, she went back down to her seat and the marketing director came up to where we were, what we call the dais. And he pulled back the curtain and he goes, Greg, Barbara Mandrell wants to meet you after the show. I was like, what? So they took her and her husband and Nathan down into the kitchen area, which was not the nicest place in the world at the time. It's much better now. And I went back in there. They were waiting on me. So when I got there, I shook their hands, said, hi, it's nice to meet you. I hope you enjoyed the show. And Barbara looked at Nathan and she said, Nathan, remember him? He was the guy in the show. And I was like, Nathan, your mom is Barbara Mandrell. So anyway, we talked and it was very nice. Of course, my head was this big. I was like, oh my God. somebody I really admired, wanted to meet me after the show. So move ahead. Oh, wait a minute. That was on a Thursday night. I was the MC. She came back on Saturday night and brought her daughter with her. And I didn't get to talk with them a whole lot that night. The night selected her daughter as the Queen of Love and Beauty that time. I don't know. I must have talked to her that night. I must have, because I remember her specifically say, because I wasn't the MC that night, I was playing the king. So I wasn't nearly out there. I didn't nearly have as many lines, but that's the way it goes. First show I would be MC, second show I'd be king, or first show I'd be king, and second show I'd be MC. Switch off with the other guys. So anyway, move ahead a year. I'm getting ready to start the show like before, and the same marketing director comes behind the curtain, and he walks through and he goes, he said, Miss Mandrell is back. And I was like, oh, cool. And here comes her and Nathan and her husband again, walking through the curtain, and she stopped and she said, oh my God, we were just talking about you. We were hoping you were going to be in the show tonight. And I was like, Barbara Mandrell was talking about me. That is so cool. So she, they came to see the show. She was picked as Queen of Love and Beauty again. And again, the marketing director came up and said, Miss Mandrell wants to know if she can meet you after the show in the Hall of Arms upstairs. And I said, sure. So this time, they had the photographer from Medieval Times up there, and there was Nathan and her husband. It seems like somebody else was there. I think they had their nanny. Anyway, it was just so cool because she was going, oh, it's so nice to see you again, and we really enjoyed the show again. And I was blown away. So Nathan looks at me, and my name was Sir Gregory, my character's name. And Nathan was probably, what, 6 this time. And he goes, Sir Gregory, can I tell you something? And I said, sure. And he goes, my mom wears a wig. And I was like, okay, what do you do with that? And Barbara just busted out laughing. And she said, what he means to tell you. She said, when we go out to Disney and Epcot, she said, I always wear a brown wig and glasses so that nobody recognizes me, so that we can just, walk around and enjoy ourselves. She said, because people always want pictures and stuff. Now you got to remember, this was this would have been 1991. So Barbara's big heyday were the late 80s, mid to late 80s. So she was still a hot commodity in country music and in the celebrity world. So anyway, I was like, oh, she said, when I go to Disney and Epcot, I wear a brown wig and glasses. She said, but when we come here, she said, we always enjoy ourselves and everybody is so nice that she said, I don't bother wearing a wig or anything here. So anyway, we got a picture, and that's the picture I posted on Facebook. And Sherry said she wanted to hear the story. So of course, there's always more to it with me. So I left Medieval Times. I went to work on a cruise ship for a while. I came back and I got a job very briefly, I think like 2 nights in a nightclub. And it was called Celebrity Nightclub or something. Anyway, the club lasted I worked 2 nights. I think the club lasted about 3 weeks. Some football players, Major League Football players opened it up. Anyway, their thing, since it was called Celebrity Nightclub, was to always have celebrities in there. So about the second night they were open, and the second night I worked there, their celebrity that night was Erlene Mandrell. Now, if you remember the Mandrell, Barbara Mandrell and Mandrell sisters, Barbara, and then there's Erlene, who had dark hair, and Louise, who had dark hair, and there was Erlene. Erlene's gorgeous and long, straight blonde hair. She ended up doing the last several years of Hee Haw, and she always played a dumb blonde. It wasn't an act. So, um, there's a story. Oh, I heard Barbara talk one time. She said that when their TV show came on, the first time it came on, they all got together um, and watched the show live, watched the show when it came on the air at Barbara's house. But Earlene left her TV on at her house so the ratings would be better. Anyway, so Earlene was at this nightclub, and I'm like, I'm going to go up and meet Earlene Mandrell because I met her sister. So I went up to her and I said hi, and I think I got an autographed picture, maybe. I don't know where it is. So I said, by the way, I said, I've met your sister. I said, we're not friends, but she knows who I am. And she's come to Medieval Times when I worked there. And she said, oh, is that the place with the knights? And I said, wait, let me back up. I said, I've met your sister. And she went, Louise? And I said, no, the other one. And she went, and I said, Barbara. And she was like, oh, yeah, you met Barbara? And I said, yes, she came to see me or didn't come to see me. She came to Medieval Times a couple of times. And she said, is that the place with the knights? And I said, yeah. She said, she told me about that. And Earlene said that she had, while she was here, that Barbara had told her that she must go to Medieval Times and see the show. Well, there was another show down the road called Arabian Nights. And the people who were making her arrangements for her, she said she wanted to go to the place that had the knights. And they heard the word knights and made reservations for her at Arabian Nights instead of at Medieval Times. So she told me, we went to the wrong place. So that was a shame. But anyway, that's when I met Barbara and Earlene. And then I think it was 3 years ago, we were doing the Sweeney Family Band. We always go to the Florida Federation of Fairs convention. And that year it was in St. Augustine. I got to meet Bertie Higgins, and I was outside talking to somebody, and Len Fry came over and said, you need to come see this act. And I'm like, why? He said, just trust me. Come and watch this act. And I walked inside, and it was Earlene Mandrell, and she was up there performing with Earlene Mandrell friends and family. And I got to talk with her after the show, and we got our picture taken again. But that was pretty cool. So anyway, that's my story of Barbara Mandrell. We always finish our show with, folks, if you had a good time, we're the Sweeney Family Band. And then Lynn says, and if you didn't have a good time, we're Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell Sisters. But anyway, that's that. Hey to everybody. Thanks for joining me. I hope the time hasn't thrown you off too much. It's thrown me off some because I haven't had breakfast, and it's already, but it feels like it's lunch, but it's 11 o'clock. Anyway, it's weird. Anyway, that's it. Thought I'd share the story with you. Thanks, Sherry, for asking for it. And we'll catch you guys later. Got to get some work done. You guys have a good day, and bless your heart in the good way. Talk to you later.